in this video, we're going to talk about training the hamstrings, all right? First thing to know is that there are 3 muscles in the hamstrings, okay? And that the primary function of these is knee flexion, all right? Then, after knee flexion is, of course, hip extension. They are trained a bit differently. And the first thing, I think the most important thing to know about the knee flexion is that that's the responsible part for your brakes, okay? So when you're sprinting and strike the floor, or when you're jumping and you're absorbing that shock, it acts essentially as a second ACL. It's very important for knee stability, all right? So because of these functions, it is actually extremely fast twitch relative to other muscles, okay, in your body. So we always, in my training, I always target this function, this movement first when I have the most energy and the most neural drive, okay? The most nervous system to attack it heavy, hard, control the eccentrics to create or to recruit the proper muscle fibers and to train them with the most efficiency and to keep them fast twitch and strong, okay? Because that's very important, especially if you're an athlete. But even if you just are a bodybuilder and want to gain size and strength, increase your squat, it's important to have the balance in there so you don't have knee pain down the road, okay? So a very simple one, of course, we have Nordics, which are going to be one of the hardest, highest level exercises, but you can also start them on a gradient by just doing the eccentrics and different ways to assist those. If you don't have access to that, or you want to train it differently, or as a variation, I love the lying leg curl, okay? So we want to go heavy here. I personally, okay, now I've been training for a long time, but I personally never go more than 10 reps. Probably usually at this point, never more than 8, but up to 10, I would say is good. If you can do more than 10, go heavier, okay? So here you go, very simple. Oh, and then you want to control that eccentric. The next thing I want to talk about is the foot position, okay? So if you come around here, you'll see that you can emphasize the 3 different heads of the hamstring, okay? So there's the toes in, all right? There's toes out, which is gonna hit that bicep femoris, it's called, okay? And then there's toes straight, all right? So if you had an imbalance or a weakness, it sometimes can be handled by playing with the different foot positions. One more thing to think about that I love about this exercise is you can train the eccentrics unilaterally. So if you had an injury in one leg and now it's weaker, you can go up, 2 up, and then work that eccentric on the way down, okay? Up and switch. This is one of my favorite things for athletes or for people who have imbalanced hamstring development, okay? So once you've attacked the knee flexion portion of your hamstring training, we then move into the hip extension portion, okay? These are gonna be best targeted by RDLs and standing good mornings, which is a variation of the seated good morning. The seated good morning is gonna hit a little more hip. The standing good morning is gonna hit a little more hamstring, and we'll talk about that when I'm doing it here next. So here, we're gonna show the RDL, and while I'm setting this up with straps, I wanna talk about why I use straps. If I'm doing more than 1 rep, I don't want my grip being the determining factor of how much tension I can put on my hamstrings, okay, and my low back and glutes. So because of that, because I'm not a grip athlete like a jiu-jitsu or a lineman in football where they need extraordinary strength in their grip, I'm okay with getting away with using straps. If you're one of those athletes or very lacking in grip strength, fine, train the grip as an independent thing. Maybe you want to do some of your sets without straps. For me, at this point in my life, not super important. I'd rather just get the work done. So here I am. Something to note on RDLs is that the straighter the legs are, the more hamstring is going to stretch, the more emphasis you're going to put on them, all right? Now, if you bend more, you're going to target the glutes a little bit more. If I straighten out, now I'm getting that stretch on that hamstring more, okay? Never fully lock out your knees. I don't recommend it. It's way too much stress on that, on those hamstrings. I suppose you could do that like in a Jefferson curl, but whatever, those are different exercises we'll talk about another time. So here, if I'm training that hip extension, I want to keep those knees only slightly bent. That bar stays pinned against my body. My lats are engaged. My neck basically stays in line with my spine here, okay? You don't want to crank too much or look too much down. Right there. Get that stretch, stay tight, okay? So that's going to be targeting the upper portion of your hamstring, tie in with the glutes. And of course, the upper hamstring, glute, and low back are called the posterior chain. These chain of muscles are connected by ligaments and tendons and that run through them all. So you can never truly isolate any of them. You can only emphasize, okay? Like a bridge is gonna emphasize the glutes. A back extension, rounding or Jefferson curl is going to target that low back, those erector spinae, but it's going to be hitting all of them. So when I say we're training the hamstring, we're emphasizing that upper hamstring, okay? The reason I broke this in 2 different videos, the posterior chain glute training, we're gonna talk more about this emphasize on the glute and low back area. And in this video, we're talking more specifically about the hamstring, okay? Good. The next, one of my favorites, a little bit more advanced, you have to be a little more experienced to not mess up on this, is called the standing good morning, okay? So the standing good morning is pretty much the exact same movement as the RDL, except now the bar is on your back. So there's gonna be a little bit more emphasis on that hamstring, okay? Because the weight is further away from the center line of gravity, all right? That's stretching the hamstring. Notice my knees, okay? I don't cave them in. I don't flare them too wide. I keep the nice stable foot placement. Feel the stretch. Stay tight and explode up, okay? Never ego lift on this exercise. You definitely don't want to round your back on this one, all right? It's actually an old tale. I don't know how true it is, but supposedly doing this exercise is how Bruce Lee broke his back. Probably was doing too much weight, probably had terrible form, but I love that guy. He's one of my idols when I was young. So you do have to be careful in this exercise. With that said, it is a great exercise once you do master it, okay? So if you've been doing RDLs for months, you want to switch it up, start a little lighter weight, definitely not as strong as RDL, so start lighter and try the standing good morning. So now I'm going to show you the single leg RDL. I might have said this before, but this is legitimately one of my favorite variations, if not my absolute favorite for training hamstrings, but also the hip, okay? Because the single leg RDL emphasizes one leg at a time, you really are able to train imbalances, which I find so many people have, okay? Whether it's from injuries when they were young, playing sports, whatever it may be, okay? So again, straighter my knee, more hamstring. If I bend a little more, it's more glutes, okay? And we'll talk about glute training in another video, okay? I like this split stance RDL, single leg RDL, because it's very easy to do, okay? We're not trying to be ballerinas. Now again, if you're a surfer or play on very unstable surfaces or need extreme ankle strength, you might want to do this with no support or on a bench, okay? Again, for me, for bodybuilding, it's not important. So, and then the last thing is, whenever you're doing RDLs, posterior chain work, glute, hamstrings, whatever, you don't need shoes. More pressure on the heel, it's gonna activate more the posterior chain, the glutes, hamstrings. More pressure on the ball of the foot, it's gonna activate more quads. That's why you see Olympic lifters with squat shoes, with Olympic shoes. That's why in our ATG program, we have us doing slant board squats. But yeah, that's why slant board squats are gonna activate more quad, which is gonna give you more activation, okay, of those quad muscles. But weight on the heel is gonna emphasize and activate the posterior chain more. So that's something to think with too when you're training the posterior chain. Deadlifts, RDLs, all those things, flat foot is the best. One last thing, if you do not have straps and want to be able to hold more weight, try something called the hook grip, okay? So that means you're going to actually grab your own thumb, all right? I prefer this way more to the mixed grip because this can cause imbalances in your upper back, and also you're putting pretty high tension potentially on your bicep. There have been people who tore their biceps deadlifting like that, okay? So hook grip, both overhands. At first, they might be a little uncomfortable. You will get used to it and you'll be able to hold a lot more weight. And then the final note I want to make here is that actually a very common mistake I see is that when people are doing RDLs, their knees cave in. Well, if your knees are caving in, you're not activating those glutes, particularly the glute medius, like the outer glutes area, okay? So we want to keep that engaged in this movement. Even though this video is about hamstrings, it's important to make sure that we are using proper form, okay? So if your knees are caving in, make sure to activate that outer glute and get the full proper mechanics on hinge movements, okay? So to recap, you have 3 hamstring muscles. They are very fast twitch, particularly the knee flexion function, okay? So it's responsible for your braking and the stability of your knee. So you want to train those first in a workout when you have the most nervous system and energy and strength. Train them heavy. I don't recommend really ever going more than 10 reps. If you can do more than 10 reps on that exercise, go heavier, okay? Then the next portion and function is that hip extension, RDLs, single leg RDL if you're imbalanced, okay? Standing good mornings. If you've done RDLs for a long time and need a variation, a little more advanced, make sure you do that right. And train your hamstrings and posterior chain flat-footed, if possible, without shoes, if you're able to. Use straps if you're not a grip athlete, okay? If you don't need some extraordinary grip strength, don't limit the development of your legs from these small muscles. These are gonna be a lot stronger, okay? I hope that helps. If I missed anything, let me know down below. If you have any questions, comment, DM me. Thank you for watching. Share this with any friend who, a friend or, particularly the ladies who want a bigger thighs, who want to develop that posterior chain. This would be very good for them as well. But yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.